What's going on? Today we will be talking about the recent infamous vulnerability CVE 2021-44228, or dubbed as the Log4j2. So why is that vulnerability made the internet go crazy and made a lot of noise? Everyone is hustling to patch it, to mitigate it. Actually, the vulnerability has an exploit ready, and attackers are actively exploiting that vulnerability now in the wild. And the coverage or the attack vector is very wide. As you can see, the score is 10, critical, 10 over 10. Nothing worse than that. So basically, in this video, we'll be talking about why it is that critical. So let me jump to my notes now and tell you guys what are the affected or the attack surfaces. So basically, if I look at this repository here, we will see the list of the manufacturer who are using the Log4j as a logging or Java logging library. You see Apple, Steam, Twitter, Pido, Cloudflare, Amazon, Apache Solar, Droid, Flink, Struts, and many other giant technical companies, Minecraft, Google, WebEx, LinkedIn. All of these manufacturer or companies use Log4j as part of their logging package. So everyone who is using Log4j as a Java logging package is affected, including these guys. That's why it is assigned 10 over 10 critical score. You can also go to this repository here. In this repository, you will see another list. Actually, it's the same list, but with URLs. So if I go to this repo here, you see all of the affected products. So if I go to, for example, Apache Droid, here is updates and discussion about this. Update Log4j to 2.15. We're going to talk about how to mitigate, detect, and patch. But basically, you can go to that repo and see every single product and the discussion about that vulnerability, how to patch it, how to mitigate it, whatsoever. All right. So what is Log4j? Actually, we said that Log4j is a Java logging library, a Java logging package used by Apache to log messages. So it's simple logging library, logging package. So we're gonna go over the practical aspect of that, how to exploit and how to find if you are vulnerable. Now, basically, now we went over what is Log4j and, of course, who are the affected products. Now, if you have a Log4j and if the Log4j that we have is less than 2.15.0, it means you are vulnerable. So what to do now? How to find out if you are vulnerable? So there are various ways to find if you are vulnerable to, or if your software you are using is vulnerable to Log4j. I recommend taking this Python script. Now, this Python script, you can find it here. Let me navigate to that URL. So this is Python script that runs on your machine. You can take this Python script, save it, and run it on your machine on which there is a web server. If it is Apache, of course. Now, if your web server is Apache, you can take this Python script and run it to find out if the HTTP server is potentially vulnerable to the Log4j 0-day. Now, it's a matter of just taking the Python script and running it. So let me take the script here. Take that, and let me jump to a recently made room in TryHackMe called the Solar Exploiting Log4j. Of course, this room is applying the exploit on the Solar Apache Solar. So basically, we're gonna use this tool here, script, to check if actually the machine we deployed now is vulnerable or not. Now, let me make that full screen. Okay, this is the attacker attacking box of TryHackMe. Now we're gonna create a new file called scanner.py. So let's see now. Scroll down. These are the imports. Okay, so see there is a function called TCP_server. This is to open a server on your end, because one way to know if the target is vulnerable, we make the target make a connection to our server using the LDAP protocol. More on that later in the video, but that's how we know if the application is vulnerable. Now, for now, this is the function responsible for starting a web server, not web server, sorry, a server on your end, runs on port 1389, which is the LDAP port. Now, when the script tests the targets, if the target makes a connection to your recently opened server on this port, it will display a message connected by, this is the target address. If this is the same host you attacked, it's most likely vulnerable. So we will receive this message if the target you are testing is vulnerable. Let's scroll down. Data equal connection received. Okay. Now this is the main function. Here we define the arguments. So basically we define the URL which we're testing. Now if you have your own server running, you can just specify that --attacker-host. The default is the local host and 1389, which is the LDAP port. Now we scroll down. Okay, so let's see here. Connection to target URL. If of course, if the URL is not running, you're going to see this error, and after that, waiting seconds for response. This is the timeout. Now basically I configured the timeout. If you scroll up, so basically this is the timeout. If you think that your web server is slow or is behind firewall, you can increase the default here to 30 seconds, 40 seconds, just as you see fit, to give your web server a chance. If it is vulnerable, it would connect back to your spawn server. So how we run that, we type, oops, okay, so we type Python scanner and we specify the URL. In my case, the URL is in the TryHackMe, so we copy that and we see if that is vulnerable. It could be vulnerable actually, but doesn't necessarily produce the output we expect. So it runs on port 8389. Let me make sure that's the correct port. 8983. So basically we have, it's the complete opposite. Now it will start a server on your end and it will wait for the target to make a connection to your server. If a connection is made, you will receive a message here. If a connection is not made, you won't receive any message. Now it's waiting for 30 seconds as this is the timeout I configured. Let's see now. Of course, this is not the ultimate way to find out if your server is vulnerable. There are many ways, as we will discover in this video, to find out if your web server or if your machine is vulnerable. As you can see, I haven't received any connection to my machine running on port 1389. The reason could be that it is not making any call back to my server. Now we can find out another way using a simple curl test. So if we just launch here a new tab and we type nc-lnvp4545. Now after that we go to the command line here and we issue a simple curl request. So curl, and between single quotes I'm going to specify y. So let me grab the payload. So basically let's take that. Okay, that's a simple payload of testing if the web server is vulnerable. Now this doesn't apply on every product. This applies on the Apache Solar. If you have Apache Solar, this payload will work. If you don't have Apache Solar, you will need another payload. But basically the structure is the same. The URL here part may differ from product to product. This is a testing URL for Apache Solar. It may differ if you're running another Apache product or anything else. Now here the payload part. So basically we're using GNDI, which is the naming and directory library. This is actually the main gist of this vulnerability. The GNDI is responsible for making calls and executing code. So when GNDI is enabled, all right, we can just execute lookups using the LDAP protocol. If you have a web server, not web server, sorry, if you have a server running on the LDAP, listening on the LDAP on port 1389, you can make the targets issuing some sort of LDAP callout to your server. And if actually a callout is made, you would know that the target is vulnerable, because we make that target actually make an LDAP callout. So here we specify the IP address. So let me check out the IP of let me see. So I'm gonna close this one. If config, okay. So here specifying my IP address, and of course don't forget to specify the target IP address. In our case, the target is running on this IP. But let me launch the LDAP server. Okay. Now here the exploit part, we're gonna explain that later, but let's make some sort of quick exploit. So ls nano exploit java. So we're gonna take the exploit code from this room. You can find it here. Go to exploitation. That's the simple one. You're gonna take that and paste it here. Don't forget to, I see what I have pasted here, something nonsense. So we're gonna copy that. Okay, so here we're gonna only modify on the IP and the port. So the port here, the IP will be the IP address of this machine. So this exploit will make netcat connection to my machine or the attacker machine. So we're gonna just save that, and we need to compile it. So to compile that, we're gonna use javac. The name will be exploit.java. That's how we compile it, and it's gonna produce a new file called exploit.class. So now what's gonna happen, guys? The LDAP server, when a request is received by the LDAP server, it will redirect the request to the web server here. The web server will retrieve your exploit. The exploit will make a connection to your listener. That's how you know if it is vulnerable or not. Now we can do that manually, but let's now use the code here, the script that we found on the internet. So scanner, let's see if it can do the job. Python scanner, and now we specify the URL, which is the machine here. Never mind these, we're gonna take that. It's running on port 8983, and of course don't forget the HTTP part. Let's make sure the port is correct. Discovery 8983. 8983. Let's see now if the script will be able to find if the server is vulnerable or not, based on the new work we have just done. So as you can see, we have an error here because we already have a server running, which is our server. Let's see now if we receive a callback. The first callback will be here, and the second callback will be on this listener. Now the timeout is 30 seconds. Let's see if the script will be able to do the job for us. This is not an exploit script, guys. This is a script only to find out if the server is vulnerable. As you can see, there is no callout that has been made from the target server, which we are testing. Now that doesn't mean that it is not vulnerable, but that's one way of testing if your server is vulnerable. By the way, you don't need to do all of that. If you are testing only, you can just try this. Okay. Now, since we're using a specific product of Apache Solar, we may need to do that manually. So basically, the first thing now we have the LDAP server is running, and we have the Python server is running. Now we can do it the manual way. So the manual way is we take a simple payload tailored toward Apache Solar. So I'm gonna grab this one. I'm gonna explain how it's done. So I'm gonna remove that part. Actually, not this one. We're gonna need the curl command. Looking for curl. So this is it. Okay. So what's gonna happen now? We're gonna remove this part. We don't need that. And we will change the IP address to my IP. This is the attacker IP. Copy that. Now here, change that to, and change the port to 4545. So now here also we need to change to the IP address of the target machine. Alright, so does this payload work on every single product? Of course not. This works only on Apache Solar. So if you're testing another product of Apache, you're gonna change this, change the path here. Okay, if you are doing that on Apache Struct or another product, you're gonna need to change the URL here. Now let's go to the payload part. So basically here the payload uses GNDI and LDAP. This will make a call out using the LDAP protocol to the server listed here. So since I have here a netcut listener running, if the server is vulnerable, it will make a call out using the LDAP protocol. Enter. And as you can see, I received a connection here. Now, this is nonsense. Of course, this is not nonsense. It's not understood by the server or the netcut because it's using the LDAP. Now, if you receive some sort of call out like that, it means that the server you're testing is vulnerable. Now, as I said earlier, make sure to change this part according to the product you are testing or the Apache you are testing. This applies only to Apache Solar, or you can use the script here. Now, how can we test that in another way? So basically, in the testing, we can also use, let me scroll down. Okay, so now we used a Python server. What if we want to use PowerShell? So there is a script here in PowerShell that you can use to test if the server is vulnerable. This is PowerShell script. You can install that on your Windows machine and run it against the target. That's for Windows. Now, let's say you want to do that, or you want to see if the server is vulnerable using hashes. So there is two repositories here you can browse to find out what are the vulnerable classes. So if you have Log4j, you will have class files, as you can see here. These are the vulnerable hashes. Now you can take that and use some sort of a grep or parsing utility to see if you have any of these vulnerable classes on your installed Log4j package. If you have one of them, or if the hash of the class that you have equals or matches one of these hashes, it means it is vulnerable. Now this is MD5. If you scroll down, you will see also SHA-1sum as well. Now this uses the class files. If you want to test the jar files, you can use this repository here. Of course, I'm going to put all of these links in the description of the video. Let's see. So hashes for Log4j versions. These are the MD5. As you can see here, we're looking for vulnerable jar files. Okay. That's for all kind of Apache. Scroll down, see the SHA-1sum as well. So many ways to test if your server is vulnerable, guys. Now, let me go back to my notes. And of course, you can use the Yara rules. So basically, let's see here. Scroll down, see if we have Yara, Splunk, Apache, PowerShell. Yeah, so here is a repository again to use the Yara rules to test if the instance is vulnerable or not. Now there is a guide here to walk you through all of the required testing. Basically, you have to use Docker to demonstrate these kind of tests. So that's as far as testing and detection is concerned. Now, what about the patches? So Apache is saying that we have to, I closed that. Okay, no problem. We can reopen this. All right, so Apache is saying we need to upgrade to version 2.16.0. Okay, why is that? Because in version 2.16.0 of Log4j, it disables the GNDI by default, which means we cannot use that to make LDAP callouts. Now, this is kind of mitigation, right? It doesn't need that, it's fully patched. Alternatively, guys, we can use other tools to just patch the vulnerable version. So one way is to, let me go to that URL, and this is the same URL, upgrade to version 2.16.0, or we can use patching tools. One of the patching tools are published. So it's published here in this repo. So Apache Log4j2 is an upgrade to Log4j that provides significant improvements. And here's an explanation on how to use that. A simpler tool, much simpler tool, would be found here. Log4j hot patch. You just build it and run it. Now, if an upgrade is not possible for your environment, you can just use the guide set by Apache to set one of these two values to true in the GNDI lookup class. Yeah, that's as far as patching and mitigation are concerned. Now, how about the exploitation? So the exploitation that I will demonstrate now applies only on Apache Solar, as demonstrated by the room here. So let's do that. Now, a couple of things required. Let me go back to the terminal. The first thing is the LDAP server. So if you are using the attack box, no need to do anything. Just run this command to start the LDAP server. Next, start the web server. Okay, and as I said earlier, we're gonna use this exploit that we built earlier, exploit.class. I'm gonna just, no, exploit.java here. So one thing to change, let's go now to the exploit and see if anything needs to change. We're gonna keep anything as is. Technically, we're gonna make the vulnerable machine make a call out using netcut and give us foothold on that machine. So just make sure to change the port and the IP to your configuration. And of course, as we compile that, the resultant file will be exploit.class. Now, how to trigger the payload? So we're gonna use the same way. I'm gonna go back here. So now we're gonna trigger the exploit using this command. So what's gonna happen? As I said earlier, we will take advantage of the fact that the vulnerable machine or the vulnerable server is making or is able to make LDAP callouts. This will make an LDAP callout to the established server here on this port. Since I already have an LDAP server running on 1389, it will forward the connection to the web server. The web server is running on port 8000 and at the same directory where my exploit does exist, which is this one. Now, in the triggering command, I specified /exploit, which means that I need the LDAP to redirect the request to the web server running on the attacker machine. That's how we request the exploit and we download the exploit to the attacker machine, the victim machine, and the target machine. We make the target machine make a request. The request is actually assigned or specified in the exploit, which is making a netcut connection to my listener here. So I'm gonna clear this and run this exploit. See now, if we receive a connection, And as you can see, we received a connection back from the target. So ID, and now we can issue comments on the target. That's how you exploit the Log4j vulnerability. Now again, I said this applies only on Apache Solar as offered in this room. But the payload part, you can use it anywhere. This part, you can use that part anywhere, to test anywhere. Only this part, it changes according to the product that is using the Log4j package on your system. Okay, so we talked about the exploitation, we talked about the detection, we talked about the patching and the mitigation. So what to do now? Using the tools we have just laid down. And of course, if you want to practice yourself, in addition to the knowledge, you can again go to that room, Solar exploiting Log4j from TryHackMe. It is free, you can try it and test the server offered in this room. It's running Apache Solar. So you can answer the questions offered or laid down in this in these tasks. They are easy, not so complex and too difficult. So basically that was for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. See you in the next video.